Well, good morning or good afternoon to you, depending on where you're located. Welcome to the virtual guest speaker series at NAF, and our guests today are from Lenovo. And we're so excited to continue this series this month with Lenovo and Lenovo employees. I'm Kevin English. I'm from NAF, and I will be starting the session. Just a few things to keep in mind as we get moving. Please make sure you're on mute. And as we go through the presentation, if you have questions, we will be monitoring the chat to make sure that we get everything answered throughout the session. Then at the end, we'll also have a question and answer session about 15 minutes toward the end. So we're so excited that you're here. This is a very relevant topic, how technology is used to respond to COVID-19. And what better folks to answer this than the folks from Lenovo who are working this every single day. I'm going to introduce Shane, and Shane is the e-field account executive for North America Workstation Sales. And Shane, if you want to introduce your team, I'll go ahead and mute and let's get her started.
Thank you, Kevin. We really appreciate it. And welcome everybody today. Good morning and good afternoon, depending where you are. I can tell you, speaking for myself and the rest of the panel, I think we're really excited to be here. We always enjoy doing these kinds of things, and it's a fantastic way for us at Lenovo to engage and give back. And so we really like doing this. I know I've done many of these in the past with most of the people on this panel. In fact, they're great experts at Lenovo to have us talk. I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves because their lists of accomplishments go far beyond my memory can possibly comprehend. So as we get into this, we're going to have Katerina, Cathy, and Rich introduce themselves and answer a couple of panel questions. As always, please put into the chat any questions you guys may have, and we'll try to answer them as we go along, and we'll announce them out there as we do that. Now, real quick, Kevin, if you don't mind just moving ahead in a couple of slides, I just want to talk a little bit about Lenovo and Lenovo's response to COVID. If you could go one more, Kevin, please. COVID has touched everybody. There is nobody in Lenovo as a worldwide company that COVID has not touched. We do business. I'm sorry, Kevin, if you could go back one slide, please. We have touched just about everybody in we do business in almost every country around the world. And as such, we have tried to combat COVID in all the areas and the neighborhoods and the communities that we do business in, with not just our philanthropy and our volunteerism, but also sometimes with our technology and our skills to be able to help out these regions. And you can kind of see a little bit of that here on the slide. The big thing to note here is that Lenovo, being a global company, we have touched everywhere. And we are trying our best to combat COVID, whether it happens to be in China, whether it's in India, whether it's in Europe, Africa, Australia, North America, South America. And we're doing this with 30,000 strong employees, and I don't think a single one of them hasn't been either personally touched by COVID or volunteered somehow to be able to help us combat COVID. Kevin, if you could advance one more slide. You can see a few of the areas that Lenovo is doing it. I'm definitely not going to read them out for you guys, but we are doing lots of outreach capabilities at Lenovo. We are first and foremost a technology company, but also I think our company's real skill and the best thing about our company are the people that make it up. And so from the interns in your upper right-hand corner that have found new ways to do volunteerism online, to our ability to help disseminate masks and PPE in the bottom left-hand corner around the globe, I think we have really helped touch a lot of the people out there that are affected by COVID, whether it's students, whether it's your parents, whether it's my uncle, for example, who unfortunately lost his life to COVID. We've all been able to try to do that outreach and really make a difference. And one of the best areas, probably the best and one of the most amazing engineering pieces that I've ever seen come together happened at the beginning of this virus in China. Kevin, if you could advance one slide. And this picture is just one of the amazing feats that I've ever seen. In China, they built 2 COVID hospitals in a matter of weeks. And us at Lenovo, we helped with the technology underneath that, the computer systems to be able to help patient care and all of that, as well as the volunteerism to get it done. But I have never seen the world come together to be able to fight something so rapidly as that they happen to with these hospitals in China. It's just an amazing feat. Now, let's talk a little bit about Lenovo and how Lenovo is doing that with our experts, because they're on the line here, and we want to hear from them because they have such amazing things. By the way, I'm just looking at the list of the people coming in and where you guys are from, and just fantastic. Oklahoma and Dallas, Texas, Portland, Oregon, just a great representative around the country. So we're really happy and welcome you guys here. So let's kick this off. I'm going to have each one of our panelists introduce themselves and then answer one of the hardest questions we're going to put to them. And that's really, how has your life changed? How has your life, both your personal life and your work life, changed because of COVID? Since February, when Lenovo decided to lock down our own facilities here in North America, how has it made a difference to your life on how you do your job and how you live your life? I'm going to start out with Katerina. Katerina is our wonderful expert chief of staff on our services team. Katerina, maybe you can take this one away and see if you can just give us an idea how COVID has really impacted your life and what you're doing to each day to be able to get by and maybe persevere.
Perfect. So I'm going to start really quickly with my introduction. So Katerina Solarova, you're going to hear accent here. So I'm coming from Czech Republic. So I have the opportunity to also monitor all the COVID cases and everything across with my family in Czech and here in US as well. I work, what I do now is I'm a chief of staff for organization, Lenovo Services, that supports, that actually taking care of when your systems is broken and it's not functional, we have to figure out how to get you a service. So that's where I am. From personal perspective, how this impacted me. I actually started this job in February. I was so pumped up. I'm going to be traveling with my boss. I'll be around the world, getting to know the people. Boom, COVID hit. I cannot move outside of the home and I am stuck on the computer. So that was my life at the beginning. And then, and I had to be like, I want to learn about operations. I've been working in services for quite years, so I know them, but I haven't worked on a front end. And I'm like, okay, now I have to learn rather quickly to make sure I can support my boss and figure out what to do. So personally, of course, all of us, and you as well, got stuck at home, figuring out what to do with the kids, cook while listening to my calls. As you realized, I am in a global role, so I do work across the world. So my calls start in the morning, 6 a.m., 6:30. I have to wake up. I'm glad that I don't have to be on camera all the time because calls are taking from bed because I just open my eyes. That's the reality. And I take evening calls also almost asleep, but that's because I have to support China. So that's a part that I had to adjust. I had a global role, so that wasn't a big change. The change was that I couldn't go to the office. I couldn't talk to people. And I had to figure out how to do that from this perspective. Work-wise, a big ramp up. I had to figure out how to keep the teams engaged. If you look at it from a perspective of my boss, you suddenly get messages, our call center in India is closed. We don't have agents. They cannot access their computer. They cannot support our customers. What are we going to do? So we had to rather quickly figure out to give them important computers, headsets, easy things, mice, but we had to get them established at home. So all these things had to happen. And then coordinating all of the communication across the teams, I think that is the biggest challenge we're trying to figure out. We're trying to make sure that the teams are working, they're working hard, and they're trying to support the customers. And sometimes it takes out a lot of the energy, and we have to keep them engaged, happy. And that's a challenge we're going to continue work through. So that's me, my life at this point of time. And I think the teams across the board did a tremendous job. We're proud of them. And they really are trying to go beyond their capabilities to actually support all of you to make sure that the computers are functional and you can actually continue your lives as is. That's my spiel.
It's one of those unsung things, isn't it, Katerina, that the technology and what you're touching, you're always really used to. That's the fun part. But you got to make sure that technology always works every day, and that's the hard part. So we were really appreciative of the support you guys do and making sure that happens. It's not just in our services side, though. Almost every segment here at Lenovo is being touched personally. And I'd just like to know from Cathy, if you could introduce yourself a little bit and then tell us a little bit about just how COVID has changed the way you work, how you go about your day and things like that. You are obviously a pretty big traveler as well in your job. And so what's it like today? And also talk a little bit about the area you live in and how it's impacted that area. Cathy?
Absolutely. Great. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name is Cathy Meister, and I am part of our sales organization. So I manage a team of sales reps that's all across the U.S., and they sell to specifically our healthcare customers. So that's usually large health systems that are made up of many different hospitals and clinics and doctors' practices and even rehabilitation centers. So really anywhere that you would go if you needed to see a doctor. And my team spends time talking with those customers about all kinds of different things related to technology and Lenovo's portfolio, but a lot of the time about how technology is used by administrators, so all the people that help make sure the health systems keep running, and as well as how the technology is used by the doctors and nurses and how they can use that to interact with their patients. So over the last 7 months, we've been extremely busy because there is, because of a rise in patients within hospitals, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move along. But how has COVID affected my work? Well, as I said, we've been very, very busy because hospitals and doctors are my customers. But the biggest change for me is that because my team is spread across the United States, on a normal week, I could be anywhere in the country traveling and going to visit with my customers. Maybe I was flying, maybe I was driving, maybe I was on a train. And so, we have not been doing that now for about since March. And I miss that. I really miss my customers because as a salesperson, truly the most fun thing that I get to do is to be out and visiting my customers where they work and seeing how they work. But it's been okay and we're making it work. So now I'm just communicating with my customers the way that we're here talking to you today over video. And like I said, it's going okay. Some things are harder. It's harder to maybe demonstrate a product or show how it's designed or how it works. I mean, I can hold it up and show you, but it's definitely easier in person. So that's been a little bit harder. I do live in New Jersey, if I didn't mention. And so because Lenovo's United States office is in North Carolina, I didn't normally go to an office every day. So even before COVID, I was working out of my home office. So for me, that didn't really change because I was already working at home and I have my setup and I'm comfortable. So that hasn't changed a whole lot. It's really just the not traveling anymore. For me personally.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. And I would just, I would talk about New Jersey since you asked. So I know everyone, when we saw the news back in March and April, New Jersey and New York, where I live, we had a lot of cases of COVID. And so we did have a lot of restrictions. So definitely for quite a while, I didn't go very many places except my house or the grocery store. That's getting a little bit better now, but just trying to be safe and following guidelines. But I've got to spend a lot of time outside, which has been fun, and bike riding and going for a lot of walks. So I think those are maybe some positive outcomes.
Absolutely. The amount of time that we as Americans are spending time outside right now, I mean, hopefully all you students are doing this too. It's such a great way to deal with the stress of COVID and the just everyday grind that COVID's caused. But frankly, being outside and bike riding has made a big difference in my marriage because, like you, I usually traveled every day of the week, and my wife now has seen me for 6 months every day of the week. She's really happy that I take bike rides and walks and get out of the house. So COVID makes funny different changes in your life as well. So some small things have changed because of COVID. Obviously, shaving is one of them. And so I'm going to reintroduce Rich here. Not that I can really say anything because I'm sporting a couple days here too. But yeah, there's shaving and maybe pants. That's the other thing that's just kind of probably lacking. We won't have Rich stand up. But COVID really has changed the way that we educate, and probably near and dear to all of your guys' hearts is how you guys get your education, how you get your schooling done, how that kind of impact happens. Rich is our expert. He is an absolute genius when it comes to education solutions. But more importantly, I want to know from Rich, because he is also one of our Morrisville, North Carolina office workers, how COVID has impacted his life personally and professionally, and how you go about doing your job today.
Well, hey, thanks, Shane. So Hi, everyone. Great to meet you. It's not just the lack of shaving. I'm also wearing a T-shirt, and I'm sitting in a gaming chair. You can't see that because of my cool Zelda background right now, but basically, it's impacted every school in the world right now, including my own children's schools. So you may not be aware of this, but at one point, 92% of the world's schools were closed due to COVID, and right now, even at the end of September, still 48% of the world's schools are closed. That's almost 1 billion students around the world. If you look at both kind of K-12 and higher education, and the one thing that we've learned is that the digital divide is real. If you're not familiar with that term, it's this term that means students who have access to technology, access to the internet, versus the ones who don't. And we're seeing, unfortunately, students who are in more wealthy areas are doing better, and they're able to connect and collaborate with their teachers, and students who are in poorer areas aren't, and they're less engaged, they're more stressed. Maybe their parents are having to work in a hospital or other environments where they're not able to work from home. So I will say, me personally, it's just wrangling kids, and I have 4 kids, one in elementary, one in middle, one in high school, and one in college. And so I'm seeing literally like the entire spectrum of education, and we're all trying to learn and work from home. I also have 4 pets. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. And so I'm really lucky right now that they're not wrestling in the background, that you can't hear them. Half the time my son is 4 feet behind me playing Fortnite on his break, and he'll be yelling about boxing up and how someone else is, I can't even remember the terminology, probably a noob or a sweat or something like that. But it's just fun trying to manage all of that. It requires balance, and it requires different things for different students. I guess that's one thing that I'm really excited about working for Lenovo right now, is our focus on smarter technology for all. And that is for all. Like, how do we deliver these types of education solutions out to all students?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I can't even imagine having 4 children and 2 pets, and you're trying to wrangle them, and you're there every day, all the time. I don't know if you can quite hear it in the background, but I have 2 dogs snoring away underneath my feet right now, and that always makes you a little sleepy in the middle of the afternoon. You end up with an extra cup of coffee here during COVID time because all the sleeping things around you. But keeping your children educated and getting to school and getting online has got to be a challenge. So. And how about you guys out there? I mean, are you finding remote learning or in classroom learning differences and changes a real challenge? And what are those challenges? If you don't mind putting them in the chat, we'd really appreciate it. And Kate, absolutely a shout out to you. I haven't worn shoes in forever. I put on some slippers every once in a while or sandals, but you're right. Shorts and shoes are kind of, or pants and shoes are out the window. It's shorts and sandals, and it has been since the beginning of COVID. So I can appreciate that comment.
That's one of the disasters. I love high heels. There's 4 of them. They're sitting in the garage set. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So yeah, I'm with you. Shoes are a big pain point for me. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is.
Wardrobes are changing. And unfortunately, with the COVID-19 being 19 pounds that we're all gaining after COVID, wardrobes have to change. I'm not certain that I'm going to fit into everything again when I have to wear pants again, but we'll have to see.
You got to take more bike rides.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Longer bike rides, absolutely. So let me dive into it a little bit deeper on what Lenovo is really doing within your solution sets and how Lenovo is making an impact on COVID. Yeah, Don, I get you. Missing high heels. I think Katerina can really sympathize with you on that one. But I want to dive in a little bit deeper on what Lenovo is really doing in your respective areas. So Cathy, if you can talk a little bit about how Lenovo is really impacting the healthcare area to be able to help with COVID and overcoming COVID. The technologies that we have, although impressive, are not going to be the only thing that's going to defeat COVID, but we can definitely help. And so if you can talk a little bit about those solutions and more impactful how it is really going to address COVID.
Absolutely, I would love to. And so there's many different ways, as I said before, the technology is used in healthcare. And I'll talk a little bit this morning very specifically about Lenovo technology. Our PCs and our laptops and our tablets are being used by doctors to help deliver care and help treat patients. Shane showed a picture up front of the hospital that was built in China. And similar things like that have really happened around the country. A great example was near where I live. I live about an hour from New York City, and in Central Park, there was just a field hospital, temporary hospital that was built in case there was an overflow of patients more than some of the hospitals could handle. And so Lenovo provided PCs to help in the operation of those field hospitals. And like one of the most important things, and this maybe seems really simple, but it's really important because everything in a hospital or when you go to the doctors revolves around something called your patient record. And that's information about you. That knows who you are, it knows how old you are, it knows if you have any medical problems, it knows what medications you're taking. And when you're in the hospital, it's keeping track of how you're being treated. And because you might see many, many different doctors or nurses when you're in a hospital, all of those doctors and nurses have to always, anytime, anywhere, be able to access that information about you. So that's one of the main reasons. And as we were supplying additional PCs, it was really to be able to access that patient record. And that's a simple thing. In field hospitals also, you've probably heard a lot in the news about ICU beds, right? So for every ICU bed, typically there's one PC. So one patient in one bed and a PC that goes with it, because those patients are typically our sickest patients, and they need to be able to have the doctor access that information really quickly. So that's one very basic but necessary. And in fact, the government mandates that all that information be stored electronically. So again, any doctor can access that about you. Now there's other ways, and that's about the doctor being close to the patient. One of the other things that we saw was actually, and this sounds a little strange, but it's actually keeping the doctor and the patient separated to avoid people who maybe didn't need to be exposed to the virus. And that's telehealth, right? So that is the doctor or the nurse communicating with the patient, just like we're talking now over a video chat. So we supplied many different tablets and PCs and desktop computers and monitors that can help a doctor be able to communicate with patients at home. Sometimes even if the doctor was in their office and maybe the patient's in the hospital or the patient's at home, a lot of different scenarios, but in that case, it's really helping to keep separate and keep everybody safe. Now that doesn't work for everything, but in certain situations, I, for example, over the summer got poison ivy by accident, and I was able to communicate with my doctor without having to go to the office. And then she was able to just give me a prescription and electronically through her laptop, send it to the pharmacy. So another use of how technology directly is helping to treat and keeping patients safe. And then Shane, if we have a minute, I'll give just one more example of telehealth. And this was very popular and very important during COVID, again, because we have to be careful to protect everyone who doesn't from getting infected. So there's something that doctors do every day in a hospital, and some of you have maybe experienced this or heard about this, it's called daily rounds. And that basically just means the doctors are going around the hospital every day and they see each of their patients. Well, because of some of the concerns back in the spring and in the summertime, you heard a lot also about PPE, or personal protective equipment. So the masks and face guards and gowns. Because in some places that was in short supply, hospitals had to figure out a way that they could preserve. And one way that they did that was using maybe a tablet. So they would put a tablet computer maybe on a stand, and that would be in the patient's room. And the patient could talk to the doctor in another part of the hospital, so they could see each other and they could talk, but that doctor didn't have to maybe use a mask or a gown in that situation. And the other way that things like tablets were used in the patient rooms was if you did have a patient who was very sick, or maybe they were contagious and couldn't see their family, that they were able to use those tablets to go and to talk, again, just like we're doing now. They could talk to their family and their friends and let them know how they were doing. So they seem like simple, maybe examples, but these are very real ways that technology is being used to treat and help keep people safe.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that last one loud and clear. Technology is connecting people during a time when connections are so difficult. It's so hard to be just having conversations with your neighbors, or meeting up with friends for a coffee, or being in the lunchroom at the school cafeteria and just having good conversations. And I don't know about you guys, but I miss that social interaction, that time you just get to spend with other people, and you learn so much from those other people just in those social communications. But now technology is kind of starting to replace that, and having that ability for your doctor to talk to a patient, or your patients to be able to talk to their families or their friends, that connection and that communication pathways is still there. It's different, and we're all learning to be different with it. And I heard somebody in the chat talking about 7+ hours in front of a computer to be able to do school all day. Yeah, it's not easy. There's no doubt about it. It's definitely a challenge. You definitely need to take breaks and move around, but it does still allow us some fathom of good social communication, and it's so important to the fabric of our existence. Katerina, maybe you can help us out and help understand a little bit more beyond just hardware technology, how Lenovo is really making an impact to COVID, because you're an expert outside of the hardware side, to be able to support the hardware, to be able to make sure that the services solutions that are there from a Lenovo perspective are going to be able to keep the technology up that Cathy was just talking is so important in our hospital systems or in our education systems and things like that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how, Lenovo's impact on that side and how it impacts COVID.
That's an interesting spin. So what, from a services perspective, we can look at it from multiple sides. I'll start with the support side, right? So we need to make sure that the systems are running, that your camera is working. It's one of the things what we've learned. We've never got so many questions around Microsoft phones and cameras and why they're not functioning, and how much the importance of communication on the computer became one of the biggest troubleshooting problems in our support. So we had to figure out ways how to proactively provide some updates on sites electronically so you can easily reach out to it. But we also had to sort of like train more out agents to make sure that they provide correct support. From other perspective, you have a different perspective on customers, right? You can have customers that are within a segment like big companies and they need immediate support. A lot of it is around solutions, how my things work together, how my mice, how my keyboard, how my microphone, how we can connect it together. So we do have as Lenovo different ways how to support our customers. And again, I'm talking from a support perspective, but you can look at it from finding solutions and finding really the real problems and things connecting together. The next piece, what I've been looking also into the interactions, and what we've been trying to figure out as a team is different ways to become more flexible to support our customers. So when you have your problem, we have different ways how we can come to you. We can come to you, you can send us a computer and we can repair it. We can come to you to your home and repair the computer, whatever you choose to be done. But you called us and we said, we cannot come to you. What are we going to do? You were afraid to get us in your house, right? Because that's something we have to, even though we go through all of the guidelines and everything, we need to make sure you feel comfortable. We can provide all the support. So we came up with some of the creative ways, for example, with our partners, with our agents, and we said, okay, let's have a car and we're gonna do a repair for you in a car. You can see your computer, but you don't have to come close enough so you don't get any exposures and you feel safe. So these ideas were just like going on a fly. We were trying to figure out what are the right things to do to meet you. And I would say that number one, customers has been tremendously patient with us. We did our best to support them, but they were understandable. They were helping us on the way to figure out the support. And that was amazing. Like, even we worked together. We worked as a Lenovo, we worked with customers, and both of us were trying to find solutions to help on both sides. And that was amazing. So I would say that brought this pandemic to me in a way that really we can work together. And there's many other ways we can look into. There's a lot of technology on the front side. So for example, when big companies or or like schools, they have to deploy machines, right? We have to figure out what to put on the machines, prepare the machines. That's a lot of things to work through. You have to create the right, we call it image setup, right? We have to create the right connections. We have to have the right applications on the system. That's a lot of preparation and coordination on your teams at the school. And we're trying to help on that as well. So there's solutions that Lenovo can support the teachers. There's usually not a full IT support in the school to help. So those are the areas we're trying to brainstorm and help. So we have solutions available across the board.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. The logistics to be able to move millions, and I literally mean millions of extra computers into schools in very short periods of time have been just astronomical. And the ability for the men and women, both at Lenovo and our business partners and the school systems themselves to be able to get that done, it gives me chills. It's just amazing how much they've been able to do in such a small period of time. It really is fantastic. Donna, I couldn't agree with you more. Face-to-face interaction is really what I miss. I'm more of a show and tell guy. I always have been. So having that face-to-face time is so important to me, and I can understand it'd be really that important to you with your students and things like that. But I do get your point. Coming so far in such a short period of time, when your first time doing distance learning could only be Blackboard, and now you're having these online calls and being able to do Zoom and being able to at least see your students and be able to see their work and things like that. We are getting further very rapidly. It's amazing how at times when it's the most difficult in the world, we make the most advances so rapidly. And I think COVID is a good example of that.
Shane, can I just add one last thing? I just want to also point out, like, being and working in a large company, we don't know everything. And I have learned so much creativity from the teachers and students. So I'm sitting with my kids. They show me things they do. I implement them in the communication with my team. So it's just an amazing learning curve for me as well, just to learn how things can be creative and how teachers, students can be creative to make things work way better than we could before. So I just wanted to give kudos to teachers and their creativity. I learned a lot from them.
Absolutely. Every mind is a gifted mind, and we all come together to get that done. There's no doubt about it. So Rich, in that same spirit, we have at Lenovo been working incredibly hard over the last 18 months, but many, many years before that, to come up with the best education solutions that we could possibly put out there. But now has been a different time. It's been a different type of solution. It's been different workloads and different things we had to think about that we never had to think about before. Can you give a couple of examples of how Lenovo technology in education has really changed and how you think it's changing lives? And Rich, you're on mute. I love to listen to you talk. We need to hear it out loud.
Thanks. So the one thing that we were working on for about a year and a half, and I guess that's one thing to talk about when we're creating solutions at Lenovo, is we're planning 2 to 3 years out. And so we launched a solution. We had it all ready to go. It was a virtual reality classroom solution. And we were so excited. We announced it at all the trade shows in January, at Beds, at FETC, at TCEA. We were traveling around showing everyone this virtual reality classroom. It's VR headsets that you wear, but the teacher can control all the content on the headsets, and so students can all be in the same virtual session. So hey Shane, your dog says hi.
Yeah, they're not snoring anymore.
So we had this ready to go, and then literally we were planning on an April 1st launch for a virtual reality classroom. Well, that in North America, all the schools shut down around March 15th, March 17th. So there was no way that schools were going to be in session, first of all. Secondly, no way that students were going to share headsets. That's like a no-no. You can't share combs, you can't share hats. Definitely can't share VR headsets. So we've had a major pivot around that solution because we designed it for a classroom environment, but we quickly wanted to test it if we could use it from at home as well. And we have kind of designed that solution for an at-home environment. So you can do immersive learning from home, you can do STEM learning from home. So that was a quick pivot, but I will say the longer trend that we're looking at right now is that classrooms will likely always have, or will for a long period of time have, students that need to connect in remotely. We have this blend or this hybrid classroom that's going to be introduced, where you have a teacher that is leading a group of students in the classroom session, and then you're going to have students that are connecting in remotely. This is happening right now in higher education, in a lot of places where they're using a collaborative platform like Teams or Zoom or Meet to bring in the students into that lecture session remotely. But there are also students in the room. And so now, as a teacher, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to solve is, how do you have instructional continuity between students that are fully remote, students that are in a hybrid classroom, and then students that are in a traditional classroom? So we're working on tools, platforms that actually are the same, no matter which scenario you're in. So that, okay, you have one student that has to learn from home on Friday, or hey, there's a snowstorm and all the students have to learn from home. No problem. You just flick the switch, you're using the same tools. And those are the types of hybrid learning, remote learning, distance learning solutions that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the daunting task of what future education is going to be. One, you need the crystal ball just to be able to really understand what that's going to be. But the limits are almost endless. The things that could change because of this could be for the better. Could you imagine, classrooms where you are mixed class with India and Asia and America at the same time? Can you imagine opening up areas of even the United States and seeing the cultural differences in class? The things could be fantastic, the outcomes of this. And I think the limits are just endless. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, if I can just kind of add one more point there. I mean, I think we haven't really addressed this in the US. We haven't really had to experience it, but we are on the verge of a national teacher shortage in the US, especially as we have mixed classrooms. We have to have teachers that can teach remotely. India has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of teacher shortages in India. And one thing we've done in India is actually we worked with a nonprofit in India to set up this concept of volunteer teachers and master teachers. And so you can, and we do this in China as well, you have a teacher who is such a fantastic teacher for the subject matter. And then you can have students join in classrooms in some of the remote provinces of China, for example, where maybe they don't have as advanced teachers there, but those teachers that are in those remote provinces work as kind of an assistant. And so they take the class from the master teacher, and everyone is getting that great content and that really great engagement, but then they have a local tutor or assistant that is helping them to really master that content at their local level. So this idea of ongoing remote learning and master teachers and addressing the teacher shortage is something we're looking at as well.
Yeah, the advancements and the change that COVID is bringing around, a horrible thing like COVID may bring around some of the best advancements we've seen in generations in education. And I really hope that's going to be the outcome. It really could be a positive thing to come from all of this. So guys, we're coming on time. I want to get one more thing in from each of you in just a few short sentences. COVID is changing everything, but eventually we're going to get past this. What do you think for you personally or professionally, what's going to change? What are you going to do different after COVID? Katerina, maybe you can start us. Katerina, maybe you can start us off. You're on mute, Katerina.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm working on unmute myself, finding the right button. I don't know why don't we can have one policy for all the providers of the mute button is at the same level where we can find it, because it's a journey. Anyway, that's a next discussion. So you're saying what I'm thinking next year. I love to be visionary, so and then positive person. So as you said, Shane, before, I am trying to find, I know it sucks, and I'm using the word for a reason, to be home, follow the news. It's depressing to see all of the negative that is around us. But I am personally seeing and trying to embrace the opportunity. So my vision is, can I pack my bags, get my kids to Singapore, and get the school that from here to US and get them study from there, right? Not to lose the connection with the kids, stay in touch and help them study. That would be my wish, like change things really as the status quo. Is that going to happen in a year? I don't think so, but COVID opened the door for us to think outside of the regular what we are used to. So really test the limits. Work-wise, I think we need to find the right blend. I was a person that worked a lot in office. I like to chat aside. I like to meet people. So it was a distraction. So I'm finding a good thing that I can actually focus more being at home, unless I have to feed my kids who are hungry constantly. But it's for me, for future, I think I'm going to do more blend of working from home and going to the office, because that helped me to balance the positivity in it. And from services perspective, I'm looking for the ways we can embrace this. So, are we going to continue and having those trucks that I mentioned before have more access to the information, actually get better technologies to repair remotely, so we can do better on a software side and repair machines that we don't have to come and bother you at your home if we need to. Be really better at those technological advances. That is a dream. So continuing being positive. We're going to figure it out. We just have to stay safe, follow the guidelines, and we're going to get through it. That is my spiel.
Absolutely. It's a great message. Rich, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Personally and professionally, post-COVID, what is going to change for you?
Personally, it's empathy. I think that is critical. That's a critical skill to know, both as I approach my work from Lenovo, as I work with my own children, and then I would encourage all the teachers to consider empathy as to what your students may be experiencing on either side of the camera. Professionally, I'm really excited about a couple of solutions that are connecting students more. One is esports. So that's why I'm wearing my Zelda background here, is to because I'm super excited about the potential of esports to bring students into STEM careers, into a way to connect with their peers virtually, competition and so forth. And then AI. So we got to get better at more efficient decision making. Especially for teachers. How do we empower teachers with better, more efficient decision making? And I think AI can help do that. So I'm looking at ways to integrate that into teaching and learning.
Fantastic. Cathy, you're going to close us out here. Can you give me an idea, both personally and professionally, what you think is going to be a post-COVID for Cathy?
Well, I think personally, I talked about it up front. I think just enjoying more being outside and putting my phone down. And yes, my work all day is video and I love being with you, but maybe just put the screens down a little bit more. I want to keep that going and enjoy nature and being outside and appreciating those things. And I haven't gotten to see all my family that lives far away, and I will make sure I really cherish that time with my family and friends who I haven't gotten to spend as much time with in person, that is. Professionally with Lenovo, Rich started talking a little bit about how, and Katerina as well, technology is really connecting people around the world. And that's absolutely something that's very relevant in healthcare as well. And so while I talked about, right now the need for telehealth and how it's helping preserve masks and gowns and making sure we keep everyone safe, some of this really will continue on. I think some people were starting to get back to seeing our doctors, and that's very important, and nothing will replace going to see your doctor, right? And I think someone put in the chat how important that is, and I couldn't agree more. But the reality is some people don't live close to a big hospital. Some people maybe live 2 hours or 3 hours away from a specialist, a doctor who has a specialty, right? But the technology and what we're seeing can help bridge that as well. So maybe you live on one part of the country and you need to see there's a doctor who lives in New York. You can now consult and connect with those doctors through technology. And also the learning aspect, right? Now you can have doctors, and this is happening right now, and I believe it will continue, as every doctors are so focused right now on finding ways to treat coronavirus and working on a vaccine. They are working truly around the world using technology to connect them, and very powerful computers that Shane's work knows a lot about, to do really intense research and using AI. all of those things are going to really will continue into the future. So I think we'll take the best of what became necessary to keep us apart to some extent, will eventually bring us back together and help us be better prepared to fight these things in the future.
And 27 years of technology that I've been in this, I think that in the last few years I've seen it advance faster than ever, and I don't think that pace is going to slow down. I think it's going to continue to advance at a rapid rate. Artificial intelligence and things like this are going to really change the way we do almost everything in life, from healthcare to education to even service and support. And I really can't wait for it. It's going to be so much fun, and we just need to be able to embrace that technology. So students and teachers out there, we'd love to hear from you of what you think post-COVID is going to be like, how it's going to impact your lives, and those kind of things. We would really like to hear from you in the chat. But in the interim, one question did come in to us beforehand that I thought was a real challenge. It's more of a personal question, a little less of a technology question. But in just like 2 sentences, I'd like each one of our guys to try to figure this one out. And this one's really difficult. How do you guys discern the difference between truth and fake? How do you take inputs from all different sources and determine whether you think it's real or not real? This is personally a very difficult question. I tried to answer this one myself, although I am a moderator, not a panelist. I'm very happy for that at this moment. Rich, maybe as a panelist, you can try to tell me how you discern truth from fake.
That is a great question. I was just thinking about how interesting it would be to have like a video log of, I don't know why my brain starts thinking about these random things, but I was just thinking how cool it would be if, like, in the new world, if we had more political leaders that would be delivering updates via like a video log, because so much, many of our assets are video. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, with deep fakes and the ability to do this, it would probably go crazy with people like faking these video logs from these different politicians. So I think what I have done personally that works really well for me, I like to see everything. So I work really hard to make sure I don't have a silo of information that's coming to me in my personal life, social media, kind of Twitter, all of that I follow. And I try to make sure I don't have like this echo chamber. And if you know what an echo chamber is, it's you're only hearing opinions that match yours. So I try really hard to get outside of that echo chamber to make sure that I am hearing opinions from different people. I may have NPR on, I may have Fox News on. There maybe those aren't the best examples, but I'm listening to different viewpoints so that I can understand where people are coming from and how they're getting their news source. One thing to remember that I studied in my undergrad in communications was the news tells you what to think about. It doesn't always tell you kind of everything that's going on, but then the news, they decide what to put on that front page or what to put on that segment. And so they're always kind of like telling you what to think about. So make sure you find different sources that are not just from one area, but a broad range of sources, and watch out for deep fakes.
I appreciate that, Rich. How about you, Katerina? You have a different perspective because of your global background and things like that. How do you, because in North America, obviously, in current times, we're so heavily influenced by both social media as well as by television or newspapers. How do you discern truth from fake in your life?
So it's everywhere that is the same. Czech Republic is the same. The influencers, I think it's very similar across the world. What I do what Rich does. I purposefully leave in my social media everywhere people that I don't agree with. I read carefully what they're saying. I'm trying to see the different perspectives. So that's number one I'm trying to do. And it keeps me, and believe me, my brain is churning sometimes because I'm like, I know what I want and I know where I am, and then I read the post from a person that I know that I'm not in agreement, and it starts me asking questions. So, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to think about beyond where you are, beyond your box, and that's what I do. I also go through different sources. I do a lot of different countries, so I look at the United States, I look at Czech Republic. Sometimes I just go to other English speaking, that's way easier country as well, to read news and see their perspective. And that's the only way how I can how I can function, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's hard, and it doesn't make it easier because you're going to have more questions. But the doubting, I think, is the right thing to continue, keep the faith and the right things to make a decision. So you have to get those different opinions in order to make your own.
It's definitely hard. So Cathy, the Northeast is kind of the hotbed of both news and information very frequently, as well as people that speak much faster than anybody else on the planet, which always concerns me to begin with. But maybe you can tell me a little bit, especially for, coming from Northeast, how you discern truth from fake.
Oh goodness, this is very hard, and but I think Katerina and Rich gave really good answers about having a wide source of information. But I see one of the comments is discerning, which sources can give most accurate information. And I'll say this: sometimes it depends on what you're trying to research and understand. So if there is something in particular, there are people who maybe look for people who have a certain expertise in that area. And I'll go to healthcare, for example, right? So with coronavirus, if you do have specific questions, that's a great question to ask for your doctor, for starters, right? If you're not sure about those things, right? So there are certain people and sources that have expertise in certain areas. I'll tell you in here where I live in New Jersey as well. What I did is, I try to also understand what the governor of my state maybe was saying in terms of regulations, at least to understand. And there you can find different sources of information. So it really, I think it depends on what the topic is, and understanding maybe what information is coming from individuals who have background or understanding of those situations versus maybe what's opinion. And it is hard to determine sometimes which is your question. But some of it has to do with just having a good and understanding and diversified, and trying to distinguish again what is maybe someone's opinion versus maybe more factual.
That's a great answer. I'll tell you, like I said, I put a lot of thought into this morning. I learn better from people than I do from information sources. And so my discerning statement of truth from fake is, if somebody will tell it to me, they're standing in front of me or they're on the phone with me, I know them, they're putting their name behind what they're saying, I will take that a lot better than somebody I don't know, or somebody who's saying it online that I've never heard of in my entire life before. Those sources are much more important to me than the people that are, just given to me by Facebook or by news outlets and things like that. And so I like to formulate my opinions. All of us are individuals. You should always formulate your own opinion, but look at your inputs and where you're getting them from, and see if you trust those inputs or not. And that's how I discern truth from fake. And that's the only question I'm going to answer. I'm going to go back to being a moderator because it's a whole lot easier. I did see one great question that just came up. And it was, are there jobs in your organization that may not be coming back after COVID? And Lenovo, like any other corporation out there, COVID is a challenging time for businesses right now. And so there is sometimes the need to reallocate resources to the areas that we need resources, and maybe remove resources from the areas that aren't getting resources. So with that said, we have 3 experts in 3 different areas right now in literally 2 sentences, guys. Can you think of a job that you guys either currently employ, as most of you guys are directors or managers, or are associated with, that aren't probably not going to come back after COVID? Katerina, maybe you can start us off.
You're giving me a tough one. In where we are, from my perspective, where our company is, I don't think necessarily it's I think it's too early to say the job will not be there. I think we have opportunities. What's going to be challenging or not, it's an opportunity or challenging, but it'll be interesting to find the skills, because if we realize I can get the skills from anywhere, the competition gets way higher, right? You don't have to relocate necessarily people. It's going to depend on a company's policy, whether they're still going to require people going to the offices, etc. But I think what proved is that you can get the skills from anywhere, anytime, and that might raise a competition for that specific skill. But if I'm thinking about losing necessarily skill a job at where we are at this point of time. I don't necessarily have a description that would say, no, you need people in our organization across the board, and that didn't change. It might change how we serve the service or solutions, but I don't think necessarily the job itself. So I'm not having at my mindset at this point of time that in my company at Lenovo, we necessarily have a job that will go away.
Okay. Rich, obviously you're on our worldwide organization and our education team and solutions. I'm sure some people have had some impact from this as we've reallocated people to either help with COVID or areas that we could maybe disinvest a little bit from. Do you see any jobs, or particularly new jobs probably coming in and no old jobs coming out? What do you see in this?
Hey, good question, and thanks for asking it. I would say that the answer is actually the opposite of that. So one thing that we've learned is that, and I said this earlier, I think that remote education, distance learning requires technology. So we have more of an emphasis, more of a solution to provide. I will say that if schools stay closed long-term, which I don't think they will, I just mentioned in the chat that equity, social and emotional learning requirements will drive students back into schools. If schools were to stay closed longer, then I would think that the whole industry would be changing and we'd be going to this online and virtual learning model. That is happening more in international countries, in China, in India, in some of these emerging markets. They are leveraging technology much more for virtual learning, so they have less classrooms. But in mature markets like Western Europe, like the Americas and South America, we're going to return to schools. And so I think we're seeing a growth in jobs from this in EDU.
Thank you very much. And Cathy, how about you in the healthcare space or in the healthcare technology space? What do you think of the employment areas post-COVID?
Well, I think healthcare, maybe in as much as education as well, is not going away. We have populations that are growing. We have populations that are aging. Unfortunately, we have, different illnesses that people are, some people getting sicker. So, and I don't see any change in jobs in the healthcare field, and I certainly don't see, because of COVID, that changing. Maybe different skills. But there's certainly, from a Lenovo perspective, no change in jobs, nor a loss of jobs, nor necessarily long-term in healthcare, right? I think you'll continue to see healthcare as a great industry, critical and a very important industry. And I know, Shane, I've been seeing some of the questions, just if you don't mind asking about, well, will people keep working from home, right? And I wanted to just answer that real quickly. And for Lenovo's perspective, I am sure we will eventually get back to the office. My role, I always worked at home. So because I'm a salesperson, I work from home. But many Lenovo employees, more employees than, there's way more employees doing many great things, creating and running our business than salespeople, and they do work in the office. And I think eventually they will go back, just like many of our customers. But what I believe will change is, now in many industries, there's been a realization that it's okay to work from home and people can still be productive at home. And you'll see more of a hybrid workspace. So I don't know that there's one job that you can think about as you're thinking about going to college or your careers. Hey, this job will allow me to work from home. I think many jobs will give you options to do that, right? Frankly, and if you want to, and if it makes sense, that you would have that option. But I don't think everyone, right? I don't think everyone will go for work from home.
Yeah, I totally agree. The industry will change, as it always changes, but it does not mean it's an elimination. It's usually just all of us to remember that skills are important. Whether you're in school today to develop skills, or whether you're a professional already, you have to continue to develop skills as work just changes and new skills are needed. And I don't think jobs will ever go away. It's just the skills will be different, and we just have to continue to do that. Listen, I want to wrap this up by saying I really appreciate all of the people on the panel, Rich, Cathy, and Katerina, for all the wonderful answers and work that they did. NAF and Kevin for hosting us here. Really appreciate all the things you guys do, and more importantly, everybody on the call, the educators and the students out there that are working so hard in this difficult time to not just continue your education, but to make sure that those students thrive in the future and become great Lenovo citizens when ready to. So we're welcoming them with open arms. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane, and thank you, panelists. This was awesome. We really appreciate it. If you have additional questions, students and teachers, please note in chat. I put Cassandra Solar's email in there. Please send that. Please also complete the JOT form so we can get feedback on today's session. We want to thank everybody for attending. We know that your time is valuable, students and teachers, and this is a very important topic. Thanks so much. We appreciate your attendance, and we will sign off and say, have a super, super day. And thank you, everybody. And waving goodbye. Have a great, great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.